Birth Association and IndieBirth.com. No material on this podcast should be considered medical advice. Birth is not a medical event.
Welcome to IndieBirth's series of podcasts here on iTunes, Taking Back Birth. Hi, Marin here, today chatting with Lisa Lister. I feel like a lot of birth workers and women in my circles are really familiar with Lisa's work and will be clapping and screaming right now. If you're not, you need to run to Google and find out who Lisa is and get all of her books. But a brief intro, and then Lisa will speak for herself. I have been following Lisa for a couple of years, and I would say she is a sister. She is a fellow radical, and although not a birth worker per se, she is a brilliant and fabulous woman and author of books, a couple of which I keep permanently on my shelf and share with people. And we're going to talk about Lisa's work today and how she got there, but generally writing about all of the things that as birth workers we relish and think are exciting, our bodies, feminine power, and women healers. So I am so thrilled to welcome you today, Lisa. Thank you for being on this podcast.
Are you kidding? I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, we took a little while to get it together, as it often happens.
Yeah, right.
But the divine timing, as we were reflecting on, is always pretty perfect.
Yes, always. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's dive right in and share with people and me, although I've read in your books, how did you come to receiving this, essentially an initiation, I think you would say, into this woman's work?
Yeah, it really was an initiation. You're so right. So where to start? I really used to live in my masculine energy, right? So I was very much from the neck up. I was very much everything had to be thought out. Everything I did was very linear. It's like it was goal orientated. This is what's going to happen. I wanted, I had a great job. I worked in TV here in the UK on Saturday morning TV, and it was super fun and I loved it, and it was long hours and I didn't care. Yet while that was happening, and these were like dream scenarios for me, like I'd really set myself these goals. This is what I wanted to do. I want to work in children's TV. I want to work in children's publishing. I want to do this. This is what's going to happen. Very goal orientated, making it happen. And all the whilst I'm in my head, I'm bleeding. I'm bleeding a lot. So I was bleeding more days than I wasn't. And then it started to get I lived with that. I dealt with it. I did whatever everyone else would do, what I assumed everyone else was doing, which was like just stuffing a tampon up and hoping that, like, pretending it's not happening. It's like, this is fine, getting on with my time. And then it started to get worse. And so, I'm at interviews with pop stars and I'm leaving like big Carrie-like stains on the sofas. And yeah, it got to the stage where it was like, okay, I need to pay attention to this. I was with a dude who I thought was my, forever dude, except we weren't having great sex. The orgasms were rubbish. And, and if they were even at all. And yeah, I wasn't living the dream life that I had painted for myself. And so after loads of misdiagnosis, I'm like, what's going on down there? Like, can someone just sort this shit out, please? Can someone just get this done so that I can get back on living this dream life of mine?
Yeah.
Right. And so I finally, after the misdiagnosis, a doctor, dude in a white coat, was like, Lisa, you've got endometriosis and you've got PCOS. I'm like, right, cool. What are those things? How do we deal with them? Like, what do we do? And he was like, well, you're not going to be able to have kids now, so we might as well just whip it out.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, whip what out? And he was like, your womb. I was like, yeah, but you were just talking about my uterus. And he was like, yeah, they're the same thing. I'm like, what? I'm 26 and I don't even know that my womb and my uterus are the same thing. Then this dude in a white coat is telling me I can't have kids, then you're telling me you're going to whip it out? What? I've only just learned what it is. Like, why are you going to whip it out? So yeah, so that was a lot in one sitting. And so anyway, he gave me a pile of pamphlets of like, this is what happens when you have your womb whipped out. And which I would have much preferred actually if they just called it that, if it was just if you're going to make pamphlets that scary, then you might as well just say what it is.
Be truthful, right?
Yeah, right. That would be amazing. Can you imagine? Anyway, I left there and there was this like real deep pain in my womb, and it wasn't the pain that I'd experienced from what I now knew to be endometriosis and PCOS. Thank you very much, man in a white coat. It was like a real, like, it was what I now know, what I call like the divine feminine, she in me. And she was just letting me know that she was pissed, right? She was like, you're not doing that. And I mean, I didn't know that at the time. I was a cynic, I wasn't super cynical, but like I was slightly cynical about like all things woo woo at the time. I had shunned my kind of my mum and my nana witches, and so I'd kind of shunned that background for a little while to kind of get on with this amazing life I was creating people. And so like I always kind of did an eye roll when I thought about kind of the spiritual aspects to what was going on in my body, and now I kind of recognize it, and I speak from this place all the time now. Is like that was the defining moment for me. Like there was this pain, and I realized that she was in me, and that she was pissed, and so she was using my labia lips to let me know. Like she's like flapping around, going, "Lady, will you listen? Like you need to come in, and you need to come down, and you need to pay attention. Like you spent so long in your head that you've forgotten that you're connected to a body." And she was right. I'd been binge eating, I'd been like everything just to make sure that I could get the job done, so that I could show up, so that I could be just as good as the dudes, right? And so yeah, that was a defining moment, and from then on I've been on an adventure, a lady landscape exploration, I guess, my own of my own healing journey, and that now it's become my work, and that's definitely not what I signed up for in career class at school. But yeah, I'd love to talk about vaginas, I'd love to talk about blood, I'd love to talk about menstrual cycles, all the things people hate to talk about. Yeah, let me talk about them.
Oh my gosh, totally. Yeah, I don't feel like I signed up for that either necessarily. It's it's put in front of you, and gosh, that's why I love your stuff so much. Like birth is one thing, but before we can even talk about that, it's the connection with our womb and our divine feminine. And I love your book, love your lady landscape. In fact, this is how awesome my husband is. He is the one that bought it.
Amazing.
A bunch of years ago. Yeah. And, I use it all the time. I read your meditations to classes, and, the connectedness, if that's a word, that you are that you are teaching women is just, it's divine. I mean, I feel like it's like coming from somewhere else, wouldn't you say? Like, spirit or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And it is, right? Because like you say, if we all wouldn't sign up for this. So we are tuned in, we are coming back to what, and I think when people say that about my work, which I'm truly blessed, all I'm doing is reminding people of what they already know, right? So and everything is like an experiential, like, oh, check this out, let's share this, like, let's just share what we're doing together. Like, I'm not claiming to be a teacher or an expert or a doctor or a nurse in any of this. It's like, this is how it is to be a woman, and for me, like, how is it to be a woman for you? So then we start a conversation, and then we can really explore the work. And then if we're open and we tune into that womb space, she lets us know exactly what we need to remember. And remembering for me is like the biggest part of this work. It's like remembering, right? I talk about it in the book. It's like we have been dismembered, like all the parts of us that are freaking awesome. Like the truth that our power lies between our thighs. Like just the fact that how beautiful it is that we are able to create life from our womb, out of our vagina. Then we can nourish that life, right? We can bleed for 5 days and not die. We are truly freaking awesome. Yet all of those things have been put in the dark, and then we've been taught to be afraid of the dark. Yeah. And that's just bullshit. quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I think that's my driver always, is so that women can remember, put themselves back together, realize that all these parts of us make us whole, like the good, the bad, the dark, the ugly, the pretty, the joy, the love, the anger, the mess. We become whole, and then we take back our power and we claim back what's ours.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. And I mean, obviously, feel the same way. And birth is just
Yeah.
like another manifestation of that, like talking about living from the head up and like a dude,
Yes.
that's medicalized birth in the
Mm,
patriarchal system right now. Like,
absolutely.
yeah, that's how I know we're speaking the same language, no matter what the topic is.
Because
Yeah.
like you say, it's the same. It's like all of those things. Like birth is so freaking beautiful. And like at the beginning of your intro, where you say, like, I'm not a doctor because birth isn't a medical process. You're like, absolutely,
Right.
yes, thank goodness.
Right, right. And yeah, I have the same passion, obviously, it's just reconnecting women. It's nothing
Mm.
that we don't have within us.
Yeah, and I'm done with that patriarchal construct of like we have to listen to someone else tell us how to be in our own bodies. It's like, nuh-uh. Like, we are powerful women. Like, yes, seek guidance, seek support, seek like hand holding. Absolutely. But please trust yourself. Please trust your own knowing around what your body needs and wants. And I know that takes practice. Like, I know that takes practice.
Yeah.
I'm doing it every single day. Like, I haven't got it figured out. And
Yeah, totally.
but I
Totally.
think it's so important that we're constantly reminded that we have got our own kind of agency around our body, especially, I mean, and birth isn't one of my a birth books. I haven't birthed a baby out my vagina yet, but birth is like one of those key places where agency as a woman just feels so, for me, and sovereignty around like what your body and how sacred it is that it can do these incredible things.
Yeah.
And that we're reminded of that, and that we remind each other of that when we find ourselves in the kind of sometimes medical scenarios where we're being told what to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, birth, even though you say you haven't done that, you have in other times and
For
places, and
sure.
right? Like
Sure.
it's not something
Yeah.
that
Yeah, you're
is
so right.
outside of, like your deepest knowing. And it's so raw and it's so messy and it's so all of the things that you've already experienced, which,
Yeah.
that's where I think our connection with each other, is there no matter what we've experienced.
I love
We
that.
have that. So much to talk about.
Yeah, right.
I really want to focus on your newest book.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
How are you
Good.
feeling about that? Shall we talk about
Yeah,
that?
let's do it. Let's
All
dive
right.
in.
Well, like I said, Lisa has several books, so she'll give her contact info at the end. You can check out all of her amazing resources. Before we kind of leave that topic, her book, Love Your Lady Landscape and Code Red, talk about the cycles, about the divine feminine, about our bodies in a way that every woman should be reading and passing on to her daughters and passing around their bookshop and their coffee shops and all of those things. But I really did want to talk today about her newest book, haha, which.
See what you did there.
I'm so witty. This book has touched me so deeply, and this is what finally kicked my butt into contacting Lisa and saying, we need to talk. And we need you over here in our little birth circles. We need you. This book is brilliant and monumental, and I'm gonna do as much with it as you'll allow me to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know, where do we start? What inspired you to write this, and who is it for? And just give the overview, and then I'm gonna want to dive into that too.
Cool. Well, so it's only been really recently that I've been able to speak about it as well. So for
It's
me,
so
like,
honest.
yeah, right, because of that reason, and it's a few reasons. So my nan and my mum are no longer in their bodies, which is the only reason I think I can write it, because it means that it's my lineage. It's my and they were very so yeah. My lineage is my mum and my nan were gypsy witches, and they and maybe we come from a longer line, but like in the gypsy kind of way of life, like you don't have records of that. So so but they were very fearful of talking out about it, and I realized that I'm still carrying the fear of not just speaking out about being a witch, but like being a woman, and then all of the other places in which like we're all being a little bit fearful about speaking out about what our truths are and what we feel, and then I kind of was just starting to look at like this imagery of like sisterhood and what we're being fed right now, and it's like, no, none of this is real. Like we're all still just trying to create something that isn't truthful, and because we're too scared to be truthful, like we're too scared of what the implications might be. We've all felt what it's like to be burned, whether it's this lifetime or previous lifetime, physically or emotionally, right? We all know what it's like to be burned by a sister, and it's like that for me was a little bit of the impetus. And then not having my mum and my nan here physically meant that they were able to guide me a lot more substantially through the book process. But I do know they'd be pissed. Like I do know that they were pissed that I was writing this book, because in our tradition, it's not something you share. It's like, everything's, you don't want, because of the fear, because of the fear of persecution, like in the gypsy community, but also in the, also as women, we know what that feels like. And even if we don't know what it feels like, we're carrying the wound of it. We're carrying the wound of it. And every time we bleed, like it's a chance to purify it. Yet we don't know that because we've just been disconnected from our cyclic nature. So there's lots of parts. Yeah. So I think for me, like the real emphasis was the need for us it had to stop here for me personally. So then it became a personal journey, right? Like it had to stop here. The being quiet, the not speaking in an outside voice, and like just that's our outside voice. Like don't speak like that indoors. That's what my mum used to say. And at the beginning of the call, when you said like I was radical, I get called rebellious quite a lot as well, and I've definitely played up to that stereotype. But and I know that I do, but I also think like that's okay, isn't it? Like we need to celebrate that part of us in the same way we need to celebrate the messy parts and the introverted parts and the joyful parts. Like I was saying earlier, it's like all of the parts. So for me, a witch is a woman who is in her power. So the book isn't about like a pagan or a Wiccan witch. It's about truly understanding the nature of being a woman and all of her facets, and the fact that we are so freaking magic. Like we are made of magic, and we are capable of making magic, and not just like the abracadabra kind, like the real power that comes when we remember and we reconnect and then we reclaim what it is to be a witch and the power that comes with it. Then the power, then the magic we can make is like, unfathomable and so exciting to me. It's so exciting for me, for women to fully be in their power. And that's that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, likewise. And like I said, it was this book that made me finally contact you, but actually the part I was actually reading really brought me to tears. And I think I had sent you the link. I had written a blog post not long after about a sister midwife who was literally at that moment being actively persecuted. And so I wanted to read just like a tiny little bit from your book about supporting each other, because for those listening, especially the loyal listeners of this podcast, whether they're midwives or doulas or women, the act of not supporting each other, especially in birth, is a huge issue
Yes.
For us in our little tiny circle, but it's a huge issue for women that we have and continue to, sell each other out or to turn on each other. And as you say, it's because we're just not in our own power, enough.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, here's a couple lines from Lisa's book because it's so powerful. I don't think I could possibly say it better. So this is your page 87 of which.
Okay.
We need to make it safe for each other, not by calling each other out and finger pointing, but by calling each other in. We don't have to agree with each other. We don't even have to like each other a whole lot. That's not the point. But in order to challenge patriarchy, create change, and begin to heal the witch wound, we do have to support other women who dare to speak their truth, even if it's completely different to our own. It takes bloody courage to stand up as a woman owning your power. So brilliant you are.
Thank you.
So
But
brilliant.
that's for me, that's the key.
Yep.
It's the key to, it's to us having courageous conversations with each other. That's what I'm saying about the sisterhood piece is like, let's not paint it as like an Instagram worthy picture, right? Where we're just going, oh, it's all about nice crystals and it's all about us holding hands and being in circle. Like, yes, I love that. And if that was as easy as that, like, let's make that happen. But like, we are all carrying some serious wounding around each other, being called, like, our mothers were calling out, mothers were calling out daughters during the witch trials, right? Like they were having to tell on their own daughters in order to save themselves. And it's like that wound is, and sisters doing it to sisters, like real life sisters, and friends doing it to friends, and all of those things. And so in that, we have to take a breath and we have to realize that wound runs deep. And so we're living in such a patriarchal society whereby, like, patriarchy don't have to do anything. We're doing it to ourselves.
Totally. Oh my gosh, yes.
Right, like
A
we are
million
doing it to
times.
ourselves. And you can see so much of it play out on social media, and I only speak of it because you just witness it so easily, whereby it's like either or, like you're either with me or you're not, you're either this or you're either that. And it's like, why can't we be both? Like, why can't I just really respect, like, the fact that you are out there having a voice, lady, whoever you may be, but I don't agree with you. Like, we don't have to call it's that calling each other out business is such a patriarchal tool, and we are just using it on ourselves. Like, they're not doing it, we're picking up and using them on ourselves. It's like, so yeah, that's such a big piece for me, is like just deconstructing and unpacking some of the stories around where we're feeling like that, because we have felt burned by sisters. Like, we have, so you do know what that, most people know what that feels like, but we can't stay in that place. We have to change it up. Like, we have to change the paradigm of how we connect as women, because when we connect to ourselves, it is so much easier to connect with another woman's, like, honestly, like, we can have the courageous conversations. We don't have to be like all love and light all the time. That's not going to work. That's just ridiculous.
Right. And
That's
it's
just
not
a crazy
realistic.
concept.
Right.
It's not realistic. Yeah. So let's just be more honest, but there can definitely be support for each other, because you got to support a sister who's out there doing her thing.
Right. Yeah. So agreed. Obviously, it's it's such a painful topic, I think, at times, because it is painful, because we do, like you say, carry that wound. But I think bringing awareness to that, is what you're doing, because it's painful no matter what, right? So it's like,
absolutely. And I don't want to like make it sound trivial either. That's not the game. But also we have to start the conversation, and we have to start having real conversations. And I'm done with the, like, let's come into circle, let's do this, and of course I love that as well. I'm obsessed by ritual and ceremony, and so there is a big part of me that loves that. But I also want for us to be able to say to each other, that hurt, that's not okay, without having to call each other out. Like, why can't we just say, like, this is not okay with me? Can we have a chat about this? Can we do this? Like, you posting that today did not make me feel good. Like, can we just chat about that? It's just starting small, with small conversations. But I definitely think, I definitely think this is where the change can happen, is when we recognize the wound, and then we then step into our power around reclaiming back who we are as women, and then being able to be with other women without using the old patriarchal constructs of competition and comparison and all of that kind of bullshit, really.
Yeah, well, and it's so insidious, and in the birth world, we have the patriarchy in so many forms, like regulation and licensing is like a big topic amongst us. And, it's really, really hard. Well, of course, you can't make people see anything, but it's really hard to shine the light on the reality of those kind of things. So, I agree. I think it's just coming back to like our own deepest truths and following the path that leads out from there.
Absolutely. Always come back into your body. Always, always, always. Trust yourself.
There's never like a right way. I mean, it's not black and white like that from the outside. So
I think there's space for there to be and as opposed to or. I think there's space for us to be this and to be that, as opposed to you're either this or you're that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the wise woman witch is just not something you can label, she's everything. She's everything.
Yeah, she's all the parts.
She's all the parts. She's every place and every person and
Yes.
Wow. Well, another thing that came up in your book that I think has so many parallels in birth that I thought you could maybe talk on a little bit is your concept of radical self-responsibility. That's a big phrase. And what that means to you. I think that's just amazingly well said. Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, I love it. No, and it's one of my big deals. I think we live in a society where we've been told to keep quiet and to be compliant. So there's that. I think there's that. And so within that, we've come to accept a certain level of care. And I notice it very much here in the UK, whereby we have a National Health Service where it's free. So healthcare is free to a certain extent. And in that, nobody takes responsibility for their own health and well-being. They hand it over on a plate to a doctor. They hand it over to a healthcare professional. And of course, these people are. I mean, I think the NHS is incredible. That's not what I'm saying. It's the fact that somebody is willing to go into a doctor's surgery and they're not taking responsibility for themselves. They're not taking responsibility for their well-being, their health, their mindset, anything. It's like so there's that piece, and we have to stop. I mean, like so when I was writing this book, particularly, I went through a very dark phase of blaming the patriarchy for everything, absolutely everything I've ever experienced, am experiencing, and will never experience patriarchy. I went big and so and I've got this incredible husband. He's like a 6'7" Viking, and he represented everything that was masculine and patriarchal, and of course when I talk of patriarchy, I'm not talking of like actual dude kind. I'm talking about the constructs and the structures that are in place. But when I was writing that book, well, both of them actually, and Lady Landscape too, there's a section in Lady Landscape where I'm like, I want to talk about patriarchy. Can I read it to you? And he was like, yeah. And so I read it to him, and he was like, whoa, that's a bit much, isn't it? I was like, what? And then and it was like door slammed, things chucked, everything, because I was so cross at him. Like, why don't you get it? Why didn't you? A bit much. Are you kidding me? And that dude, he supports the divine feminine in all the ways, but he could not have done anything right in that situation. So, there was so there was a big time where I was like blaming, and then as the book was coming to an end, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I can't keep blaming the patriarchy for where we're at. It's up to me now to decide what's next, right? It's up to me to decide how I take action or show up or be in the world. I get to make those choices, but we can only understand what that what that agency, and I know it's very different for lots of, for every individual, but we can only start to understand what that agency and that sovereignty of being in our power feels and looks like through practice, right? Through taking responsibility, through growing ourselves up, through like realizing that we've been infantilized, and so many of us haven't been initiated into the rites of passages of being a girl, of being a woman, of being a boy, of being a man, right? So many of us stay young and stay, and it's a big part of the work that I teach in terms of our menarche. Like that first bleed is when we're given our song, it's when we're given our purpose. And so if we're not initiated into it, most of us stay girls, and so then we look for someone to come save us all the bloody time.
Sure.
Right, we're looking for a knight in shining armor, and whoever and whatever gender or form that comes in, but that's what we're looking for, to be saved. And it's like, what if we saved ourselves? What if we understood that we were powerful beyond measure? What if we understood that we can make choices and decisions, and for our off our own back? And so then, like, a big part of the work for me has been about, I want women to have access to all the information they can, so they can make informed choices about their bodies, about their sexual health, about their kind of womb, and then how to nourish it, and what a nourished womb should feel like, for example, or could feel like. So self responsibility for me comes in lots of different forms. Like, don't hand your power over. For a start, but then I can't ask that of you if we've not even experienced what being in our power feels like.
Right.
So that, and then it's very much a dance that I'm in. So it's not like I'm saying do this, do that. It's not that at all. It's like I'm feeling all the parts of what it is to be a woman who has handed power over, still does in some cases, in some situations, because she still feels fearful, and in others really knows how to stand in her power, really knows how to call it back, and realizing where it's like a journey of self-discovery, right? Always understanding where we can unpack and unfold those parts of us that witnessing, not blaming ourselves and picking up a stick to beat ourselves with either. Right. That's the big part of all of this work, I think. Like, we can do the self-analysis, we can see where, I'm still playing young there. I'm still really waiting for someone to come save me. I'd really love for someone to just do that for me. I'd really love for someone not to have to make that decision. See all those parts, and then not beat ourselves up for then, being that person. That's not the deal either.
Yeah, it's hard work, I think.
It is. It's hard work, literally.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to be in the dark sometimes, I think. Not really, but
There are some times when I'm just like, if only I could just like not know this stuff. They are very, very few and far between. But there's just a few times, and I think that's cool as well. But then when you realize like how much power you can yield in the world and use for good. Yeah. When you do have access to the power of your womb, of your menstrual cycle, of what you're able to do as a woman in this world, of being a witch, of being a woman in her power. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is the most incredible. And that is why we both do this work, not that we have it done, but just that you're on the journey and you're willing to share and be truthful and be in your own integrity, so that other women, it's a feeling too. I think it's like an energetic thing you put out, and so other women are called to go down a similar path when they feel that.
Good. That's the plan. That's the plan.
That is the
except
plan.
It's the plan, except there is no plan. So that's the beautiful paradox. Like, there is no plan, but like that if there was a plan, that sounds like a really bloody good one. Yeah. So let's go with that.
It's the planless plan.
Yes.
The planless plan. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I think we could talk for hours, but perhaps we'll get to do that shortly. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, total pleasure. Total pleasure.
Will you share your website and or whatever kind of information you'd like people to have about you so that they can get a hold of these books?
Oh, yes. The website is www.thesassyshe.com. And that's home to my courses, to my books. And if you're looking on social media, I'm an Instagram girl. So
You
I think,
are.
yeah, you have to pick one. There's too many, right? So you have to pick one, and you have to just like, I don't know. I don't want to get caught up in doing social media all day long. So I love Instagram. Instagram, yeah, is my jam. So if you want to find me there, I'm at Sassy Lisa Lister.
Yeah, I love your Instagram. I love
Oh,
it.
thank you. I love
Super
it because you just get the
inspiring.
chance to be really creative on Instagram, right? Like you just get the chance, and I use it as a mini blog. Like I used to blog all the
Hmm.
time, but now, yeah, I just use it as like a micro blog space. It's nice,
Yeah, it's like a little
and then people
scrapbook of
interact.
sorts. Hmm.
Yeah, it is like a scrapbook, and people interact as well, and you get to, yeah, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Well, thanks to Instagram, I got a hold of you. So yay.
Yes, yeah, Instagram.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much again. I am excited to put this out there and have your reach be even more
Oh,
amongst
thank you
these.
for sharing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, have a great day, everybody. Be sure to check out the indiebirth.com site for new content and podcasts. Indiebirthmidwiferyschool.com will also be enrolling for next summer, so check that out. And thanks for listening. Have a great day.